Welcome to all of my friends on here. Today is Wednesday, and I've been wanting to start a weekly live for some time now. And I was trying to decide what I wanted to do it on, what I wanted to call it, and I'm just going to call it Wellness Wednesday. And so each week I'm planning to focus on one specific topic, not talking for more than 30 minutes or so, probably 15 to 20 on average, depending on how the engagement is, and just helping educate more people on women's health topics, especially those who might have experience with competition or just enjoys learning about the bodybuilding lifestyle. And that way you can take some of this information and translate it into your life as a general person looking to better their health, as a coach, as an athlete, whatever it might be. So if you follow me on my Instagram page or here on YouTube, I appreciate you. And if this is something that would benefit one of your friends or family members, please share. Would love to have them join as well. So today being the first initial, I would say, webinar slash live chat. I only got a couple questions on Instagram today, but I wanted to kind of go over my background a little bit and then dive into thyroid, which is very prevalent in women's health, whether you're a competitor or not. So, first and foremost, those who don't know me, my name is Caroline DiMasquita, also known as Strong Sweet Caroline, and I have been doing health and fitness as focus in my lifestyle the past 5 years. So, I graduated from Ohio State in 2014 with a degree in agriculture communication. Most of my background is in food, livestock production, and the way that we communicate that. I worked in PR, journalism, done a few different side hustles, internships. I worked for a large agricultural firm in a sales and marketing role. And I've had a lot of different backgrounds when it comes to corporate development, corporate business. And in 2015, I was well into my sales career and realized I wasn't satisfied with my health. I had put on about 20 pounds coming out of college. I've always been a petite, smaller bodied person, and I hit a point where I was like, something needs to change. Most of my family has health issues, tendency to be overweight, and just genetic displacement. And so, as I started learning more about my family's background and health, I wanted to better myself and my health. And that's ultimately what got me interested in bodybuilding. Was I started learning about health and nutrition. I hired a coach as almost like an extreme weight loss, so to speak. So that was when I did my first competition year. And after that experience, I thought I was going to quit. I ended up loving it and falling in love with it. So after that show, I had realized that there was something going on in my health because I had lost my period and I wasn't in a severe deficit. I was just working a lot. I was training 6 to 7 days a week. I was doing fasted cardio and I was pushing my body to the extreme. And all of these gynecologists and doctors would just tell me, "Oh, you're healthy. Do you want to go on birth control?" I would say no. And that's what really got me learning about women's health specifically because I knew there was a missing piece of the puzzle. And it was in 2018 I decided to research more, and actually 2017 I started research more and really focusing on my health, got my period back, and realized that there was a gap in what I was doing and what I was learning. And that's actually the year I first started coaching some people on the side and learning about how to integrate in different lifestyles, whether you're a bodybuilder or not. And that was the, I would say, tipping point for me to really hone in on understanding the female body a little bit more. I joined down with John Meadows as a client in 2018. And so at that point, he was starting to get to know my body a little bit better, understood my hormone imbalances and displacement that I'd experienced. And we decided to take a longer off season. That's the first year that I started to learn a little bit more about performance enhancers and try them out on my own. And since then, I've gone through ups and downs as far as my health goes. I've had great hormones in lab work. I've had terrible lab work from thyroid dysfunction to hypothalamic amenorrhea as well. I've had issues with my hematocrit. I've had issues with my gut. I've had cystic acne that literally was breakouts all across my cheeks. and I've had adrenal fatigue, dysfunction. So, all this to say, the past 5 years of the ups and downs has led me to here, where I'm able to now full time coach others to understand their health, understand what's going on in the female body. I actually just hosted the Feminine Health Enhanced classes, and I've done two of them this year, and I'm probably going to put that to rest. And I'm going to shift gears to overall feminine health enhanced and doing a menstrual cycling course to help women understand how they can optimize their training, nutrition, and their other activities to pair with what they do and how their hormones will adapt on a monthly basis. So I'm really excited to launch that. And now this year, just have a lot of new things that I want to help my clients, help future clients to better understand hormones and female health. So that's where this little weekly Q&A is going to come in. So I am really excited to be able to use my platform to better the world and help more women out there. And as someone just said, just like John Meadows, he's been a big inspiration in my life and one of the main people that reminds me and helped me become more of my authentic self. There's always going to be a lot of people trying to coach. There's always going to be a lot of competition in the market. But at the end of the day, our job is to make other people's lives better and enrich other people's lives. And there's always going to be more coaches because not every coach is for every person. And that's how it should be. Just like not every business is for every person. So competition is healthy in the business side of things. And as a coach, I try not to think of it as a competition. Now, that's something that's actually been difficult for me recently is my self-worth and my mindset. I've had to kind of take some steps back and not judge myself more or take it too harshly when others are putting themselves out there in maybe a more sexual way or in a way that I don't think should resonate to teaching people about women's health. But at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility for accountability to someone else. It's just my responsibility to be accountable for myself and my progress and my health and loving myself more and more every single day. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I've talked a little bit about my background on like my blog and my Instagram and my YouTube videos as well. So if there's any other questions, feel free to go ahead and put those in the comments as well. But we're going to go ahead and do a quick little lecture on thyroid because I do find that some people understand it enough, but then others don't understand it at all. So if there's any way that we can raise awareness, that is what I would love to do. So, first and foremost, the thyroid glands are they shaped like a butterfly, and they're located like right behind your vocal box in your throat. So, just like any other gland, the thyroid can be affected by anything that's happening around it. So, stress on the body, any neuroendocrine disruptors, anything that could affect it that's around it will have an impact on it. So essentially, it starts in our brain. The hypothalamus is going to release the thyroid releasing hormone and cortisol releasing hormone. So TRH and CRH. Sorry, it's tryptophan releasing hormone and corticotropin releasing hormone. So when those are released, they're going to go through our pituitary and eventually release TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone. That is going to tell the thyroid to essentially produce T3, T4, and reverse T3. Now, our T4 is basically a bioavailable amount of thyroid. T3, you can think of as like the gas, and if it's low, that could be a sign of the thyroid dysfunction or poor conversion ratio. And the reverse T3 is like the brakes. So if it has too much, that can be from inflammation. And essentially, a lot of our conversion, I think it's about 80%, happens in the gut, the liver, and the heart. And so, one thing that I've talked about with a lot of people is the metabolic integrated system. So, the thyroid doesn't operate on its own, it's part of this system that affects our metabolism, which includes thyroid, our adrenal glands, the gut, our sex hormones, our liver, and I think that's those five. So they're all working in tandem, part of the system. And if something is out of whack, that's where we start to see issues. Now, a lot of people like to blame the thyroid when you start to see health issues, but that's not always the main culprit. Honestly, a lot of health issues start in the gut. So if there's something wrong with your digestion, or you start to feel crampy, or you start to feel like something is off, that can literally be a sign that something is imbalanced and could lead down the road to other issues with other parts of the system. All our hormones are in communication. So when we're thinking about how the thyroid is affecting us, if it's overproducing, hyperthyroidism, you can have issues with the body, as well as hypothyroidism, so when it's underproducing. Now, essentially, you're going to see different labs. You're going to be able to gauge it more specifically by getting labs done. But there's also external symptoms that you can check to see if the thyroid is, acting the way it should. If you start to feel sluggish, lethargic, low sex drive, if you start to have really bad sleep, anxiety, you can have an imbalance there. There's a lot of different markers that you can check to see what's going on with the thyroid. And like I said, all of it's going to be working hand in hand. And there's also different micronutrients that will help support the thyroid. So one in particular that's very helpful is L-tyrosine, which is an amino acid. We also know that iodine and selenium are very helpful for thyroid support. Now, there is going to be optimal ranges that you want to use those supplements to help the thyroid. So you don't necessarily want to go balls to the wall with increasing your iodine and using iodized sea salt, or doing that without selenium, or maybe you want to add in your L-tyrosine in the morning. You just got to be really careful so that you don't over support something if it's producing. Now, when it comes to athletes, a lot of times they are going to have that hypothyroidism because of the extreme training paired with a restrictive diet. So when you start to overwork that body, the thyroid is trying to figure out, do I need to produce more or do I need to slow down? And so if you're starting to suppress what you eat and you're in a cut, or you're dieting for your vacation, and you realize that you've been doing the same amount of cardio and the same amount of calories, and all of a sudden you just hit a plateau, that can be a sign that the thyroid is starting to slow down. And it's starting to say, oh, well, I don't need to produce as much because I'm not eating as much food. And yeah, I'm training, but we need to reserve these energies so that the body can maintain itself. So ultimately, that's where you see some of these issues that people have. Now, a lot of this also goes along with stress management. So the body can't interpret what's a good stress versus a bad stress. Even if we love to train, if we are overtraining and doing 2-a-days, doing cardio and weights, we're going to the gym and just flat out crushing it, you could be pushing yourself past that boundary that the body thinks that it's a safe stress. Don't get me wrong, stress is good. We do need stress in order to be more resilient, in order to grow muscle, in order to perform. But that's where there needs to be that threshold to know, what do you do and how do you support the body so that we don't have any issues with it later on. Another thing when it comes to thyroid that a lot of people won't think of is the autoimmune issue. So it can be triggered whether it's high or low, Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, and essentially that also can be paired with the inflammation that we see, your diet, and any gut issues or any hormone fluctuations that are going on. I know a lot of people want to have an easy way out, and that's why we have pills like T3 and T4 as hormone replacement therapy. There is a place that will be good. However, there's also that fine line that if you're adding in too much of that exogenous hormone, eventually the natural production is going to stall out. So, just like anything, you just need to take it one step at a time. I do advise listening to a doctor, and you always want to get their input, but you also need to know and understand your own body too. That way you can learn it and know when something might be right for you versus when it might not be correct for you. One other unique factor that a lot of people don't know about too is that if you have increased production of that TRH from the hypothalamus that we talked about, and it has actually low circulating thyroid hormone in response, we can actually see increased prolactin, which ultimately can cause some of these PMS issues that we see in women and suppresses ovulation. So, once again, that's where our thyroid is going hand in hand with our sex hormones. And thyroid is actually has receptors on every single oocyte. So, those ovarian cells that women have, there's a thyroid receptor on all of those. So that's why hypothyroidism, we see a lot of congruency with ovulatory dysfunction. Even if you get a period, if it's super light, if it is irregular, you might not even get an egg release. It could be anovulatory. And those can correlate to thyroid dysfunction. So, all in all, thyroid is a complex gland, but it is very beneficial to start to understand it on a high level, because once you do, and you know that you can either support it with some natural supplementation, stress management, adaptogenic herbs, super helpful for that, breath work, meditation, all of these pieces can play a part in balancing and managing our thyroid. So, what other questions or avenues would you guys like to go down? Talk a little bit more about different parts of thyroid or hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism specifically. There is a feedback loop as far as how, if it is low signaling, it can trace back to those different functions in the body. But at the end of the day, we just have to know that some people might be really good at converting. And sometimes, if we overstress the body eventually too much, that's where we get some of these slowdowns and issues with the conversion. Most specifically, you might have issues with liver detoxification, which is why cutting and reducing alcohol is very important to keep the liver going. Any type of gut distress, whether it's low stomach acid, which is a very popular issue, leaky gut, candida overgrowth, any other bacterial overgrowth, any type of gut distress, estrogen dominance, which often is correlated to gut issues as well, can lead to conversion issues of thyroid, stress, like we talked about, and then nutrient deficiencies. So even if the female might not be eating in a deficit, if she is lacking certain nutrients because she eats such a cookie cutter diet of the same foods every single day, every single week, that can eventually lead to thyroid issues and displacement as well. But like I said, that's something I'm trying to learn a little bit more about too, and there's always more to learn, right? At the end of the day, life is supposed to be about constant learning and just continuing to do better for myself, for my clients. In my webinar that I just did, I was reviewing my labs from 2019 through now, and my thyroid was in a really good place. The first prep I ever did with John, and then it started to decline the more and more shows that I started to hit back to back to back. And so that's another key takeaway for other female athletes is sometimes it's okay to do shows one after another, but eventually you're going to hit a point where the body is going to suffer and those systems are not going to be functioning optimally, even if you are supplementing in, say, a T3 pill every day. So just take that and keep that in mind so that you are doing your best and your due diligence to prevent thyroid issues. If you're waking up at 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., it can be because of the liver, or it can be connected to a thyroid or a cortisol imbalance. So just becoming more aware of that and knowing what your body needs and how we can support all of these systems. So if anyone has any other questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments in the chat. And if not, I appreciate you all for tuning in for this first Wellness Wednesday live video. And continue doing great things. Keep working on yourself and bettering yourself every single day. All right. If there's no other questions, I hope everyone has a great evening and look forward to seeing you all soon.